Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1064, 1064. March the 6th, 2020, Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Alrighty everyone, let's go ahead and get to the news of the day. Of course, the big story yesterday was that Liawatha, that's right, Liawatha, Elizabeth Warren, has packed up her wigwam and headed out of town. She's done. Now, it doesn't surprise me that she's not offering any endorsement. That's a big loser. Either way she goes, it's a big loser. Of course, it's a loser anyway because she's already getting a lot of the blame from Bernie Bros for staying in the race as long as she did, which a lot of Bernie Bros believe that Elizabeth Warren being in the race is what cost Bernie Maine and Massachusetts, possibly even Minnesota, although I'm not so sure that that's the case. But anyway, that's what Bernie Bros believe. So yes, Liawatha has packed up the wigwam and she's headed back to wherever she came from. And again, I mean, as far as an endorsement, there was reports that she had talked to both the Biden and the Sanders campaign the night before. I don't know if she was looking for a deal. Clearly, she's probably been getting the same phone calls as everyone else. But it's kind of unclear, I guess, exactly where Warren's supporters are going to go. Not that she had that many of them, but it could be enough in some of these close races to tip the scales one way or another. I kind of think that most of her supporters will go to Bernie. There's no other woman left in the race, so they're really down to, well, other than Tulsi. But she's really not on the radar screen, and she won't be allowed in the next debate because they changed the rules again to keep her out. So I don't think that, and she's not quite far enough left for a lot of the leftist females in the Demo-Commie Party. So I don't think that she's going to be a factor at all. I think Warren, likely, I would think the majority of her support would go to Bernie. That would just be my guess. She's on the, pretty far left side of the equation. And so I think if you're a person who's so-called center-right Democrat, you're going to vote for Biden, unless you're a woman. But at this point, I mean, I don't think it matters that much other than in some of these states up in the upper Midwest and the Northwest. I think that that's those states that are still remaining to be voted in. I think that that's where it could matter. And in fact, Bernie's entire campaign strategy, I'm sure, is changing now. I mean, if Bernie's smart, he's just going to forego whatever he's done in the South and the Southwest. He just can't win in the South and Southwest. Biden kicked his ass there. The rotten Reverend Clinton kicked his ass there. He just doesn't play well in the South and the Southwest. I mean, for whatever reason, I mean, he did okay in Nevada, but for the most part, maybe New Mexico, I don't know. It's not as liberal as Nevada, I don't think. So, and Arizona is pretty much a red state. So, I don't really know what his strategy is going to be going forward, but I do know this. Bernie's got to win Michigan. He's got to win Michigan. He's got to do well. I don't know that he'll win Ohio or that he'll win, Missouri, or he'll win a lot of these states in the upper Midwest or central Midwest, but he's got to at least ways compete for delegates. If he can win Michigan and get the lion's share of delegates there, I think he has to win Michigan. And then I think that he needs to be putting all of his resources into places where he knows he has a chance of winning and just completely forget about the places he has no chance of winning. I think he has to try to run up the vote as much as possible and get as many delegates as he can in the states that he is presumed to win, and then the states that are kind of split, that are a little tougher, I think he has to try to make sure that he gets past that 15% margin so that he gets a share of the delegates, and then he needs to be as competitive there as possible and get as many delegates in those places as he can, because any time or money he spends in the South is wasted. So I think that that's probably what we'll see going forward, and that's why I say the Liawatha could come into play in places like Michigan, Ohio, possibly Illinois, Kentucky, places like that. So I think that that's probably the strategy he'll use going forward. After Liawatha dropped out, Bernie came out and made a statement and said good things about Liawatha. So, I don't know that that sends a signal, but I think that I think that the general feeling that I got from that is that the reason that Sanders commented positively about Warren is because he wants her supporters to say, well, at least Bernie said good things about Warren, so maybe we should vote for Bernie. So I think that's probably the strategy there. I don't know how much of a difference it'll make other than in the very close states. And there's a couple key states that Bernie needs to win to stay viable. And he needs to get as many delegates as he can in the states where it's competitive. And then the places where it's not competitive, he just needs to pull his resources out. It's a waste of time and money, and that would be in the South. So there you go. Liawatha, she's out. She's made no endorsement, and I would assume that her position is going to be that she will endorse the nominee and that she won't actually come out and endorse Biden or Bernie. And there's obviously a lot of reasons for both. It's a complicated position for her either way. If she comes out and endorses Bernie, then she'll get the persona non grata with the establishment, who she still has to go on after the election and try to work with as a senator and that sort of thing. And she might want to try to run again as a senator. She'll want the party behind her, and if she doesn't endorse Biden, they may not give her the support she wants. So she doesn't want to piss off the establishment. At the same time, if she gives her endorsement to Biden, then she pisses off a lot of those people on the left who she also counts on. So it's a difficult position she's in, and I think it's not just her. It's all Democrats across the country are in a very difficult position, because there's a lot of Democrats who are being pressured, who are also running for Congress. Of course, they're all running for Congress, and they're going to be pressured by their local constituents. A lot of Bernie supporters in the upper Midwest and the central Midwest, like where I live in Ohio, a lot of Bernie supporters will be pressuring their representatives to come out and make endorsements for Bernie or Warren. It'll be the same. So there is going to be pressure by a lot of Democrats whose constituents are going to want their congressperson to come out and make an endorsement, and they're not going to want to do that. Just like Warren, they want to ride the middle of the fence and probably say, well, I'll just endorse the nominee. That's a safe thing to do. And, of course, it can hurt you if you're being challenged by someone on the left in the Democratic Party. And so it's a sticky wicket for a lot of Democrats. You do not want to be a Democrat in 2020. Trust me, it's a very, very tough deal. Now, Trump was doing this town hall and on Fox, and he said that he was ready to face Bernie. And he actually said he thought Bernie would be tougher to beat. And I think that that's probably true. And I think that for two reasons. Number one, Burisma Joe has got dementia and likely will not even be the nominee. I think it's all set up. I don't think the intention is for Biden to be the nominee. He's just the guy they had to use to take out Bernie. But once Bernie's gone and they get to the convention and Bernie's gone, then it's going to, and may even happen before then, they're going to realize, okay, we've taken care of Bernie. Biden did the trick for us. Very good. Thank you, Burisma Joe. Now, out the door you go, and they're going to come in with someone who's at least ways not mental, not suffering from dementia. So I still think the Democratic nominee is not known. My personal opinion is it will be the rotten Reverend Clinton. But another reason that I think Trump believed that Bernie would be the nominee and probably the toughest one to beat is because his supporters are actually enthusiastic and have a lot of energy. And they, so I think with Burisma Joe, nobody's really voting for Burisma Joe because they're enthusiastic about him, because they're excited about him. He's simply the best of the worst. I mean, there's like the hold their nose and vote for Biden. They can't really tell you why they're voting for Biden. They're telling you they're voting against Bernie. They're voting to stop Bernie. If they vote for Biden in the general, it'll be to stop Trump. And there's no one out there telling you they're voting for Biden because of all the wonderful platforms or positions he takes. There's no one out there actually voting for Biden. They're voting using Biden to vote against somebody else, Bernie or Trump. So Trump's right that the energy and the enthusiasm is with Bernie, and that would make him tougher to beat, and he can raise a lot of money. Biden, on the other hand, he's got mental failings, and he doesn't generate very much enthusiasm. And everyone knows that elections are about turnout, and on election day, there's just going to be a lot of people who will look at Biden. I mean, demo commies, maybe some independents who lean left, who will look at Biden and say, yeah, Biden, yeah, I guess he's better than Trump, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I don't skip it. You know what I mean? There really needs to be some enthusiasm or excitement about a candidate for people to want to go out and wait in line and cast their vote. And we've seen this time and time again. It's really hard to win when you really don't have that much enthusiasm or excitement. That's one of the many problems that Reverend Clinton had. There was not a lot. She had about a 20-25% hardcore loyal base, mostly a lot of women and soy boys who would come out and were passionate about her, but most of the country was not, and a significant part of the country, 46-47%, hated her, quite honestly. At least ways Biden is not hated. But Biden's also got a lot of other problems. He's got the investigation in Ukraine going on. He's got this investigation going on in the Senate. So there's a lot of problems for Joe, and for that reason I agree with Trump that Bernie probably would have been a more formidable candidate. I think Biden will get spanked just as bad, if not worse. Well, we have Senator Josh Hawley and 14 other GOP senators introducing a censure resolution against Chuck the Cuck. And there's also people saying that what he did may have crossed the line into criminality. And I would think that you may turn this over to the U.S. Marshals and allow them to investigate. And the point is here, and what makes this different from just your typical, slander by someone like Chuck the Cuck, is the fact that he named names. He said, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, and then he made a threat. And it's the fact that he named them and then made the threat. I think that probably could qualify as a criminal act. And I do think that the U.S. Marshals should investigate and, possibly file criminal charges against Chuck the Cuck. He absolutely should be censored. I think he should resign. And this is nothing new. I've been watching this guy for years. He's been saying this kind of stuff, just like when he said that, the CIA has 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you. These are the type of slights and threats that he's been doing for years. It's just that this one here was magnified because of the all the energy around the issue and the fact that he did it standing right across the street from the Supreme Court, speaking to a sizable group of, foaming at the mouth, hateful, angry leftists. And that could have incited something. It could give some people some idea. And then to take it one step farther and name names, that's where I think he crossed the line into possible criminality. I don't think that anything will be done about it, but I don't even know if they'll even get the votes for censure, because there's a lot of sissies in the Senate. As we know, the Senate sucks. It really does. The Senate's bad. Let's just put it that way. There's a couple. I can name the senators probably on 2 fingers that I think are actually good. I'm talking on the Republican side. I'm not even talking about Democrats. The majority of Republican senators suck. You almost have to be like super deep state to get a Senate seat. That's why I want to see Doug Collins get in the Senate. Alrighty, well, we have Slick Willie, the crooked-peckered husband of the rotten Reverend Clinton, who, of course, is featured in this new Hulu documentary called Hillary. What else? And he's now saying that he had the affair with Monica Lewinsky because of the pressures of being U.S. president. Sorry, that's not going to work. And here's why. Because he had hundreds and hundreds of extramarital affairs, including some alleged rapes, sexual assaults, long before he was ever president. Slick Willie was known for being a womanizer his entire life. Even in his college days, he was known as a womanizer. All throughout his time as a lieutenant governor and governor. The guy was literally, had hundreds of women, according to the Arkansas state troopers who went out and procured those women. He had literally hundreds of women. And the real reason is because he's a philanderer. That's basically it. He's a womanizer, a philanderer. He's a pervert. That's who he is. Now, as far as when he was in the White House, that wouldn't change anything. I mean, he probably ramped it up. And as president, you probably get more chicks than you do as governor, I would guess. That's probably how he looked at it. And, in a lot of ways, I mean, you almost can't blame him. I mean, look at who he's married to, right? Would you want to have sex with the Rotten Reverend? She's a cold fish. Not all that attractive. She's a bitch. I mean, I can't imagine a romantic moment with the Rotten Reverend Clinton. She's total cold fish. And if you're the president and you can pick up much hotter, younger chicks than the Rotten Reverend, why would you bother with her? I mean, I don't even think Chelsea even is a product of a Clinton, sexual experience. I think she looks a lot to me like Webb Hubble and Hillary. Chelsea looks like Webb Hubble a lot more than she looks like Hillary, and she looks nothing like Bill. So that's been my thinking for a very long time. But yeah, this excuse is not going to fly. Clinton has been banging chicks for his entire life, long before he was president. So it's just more bullshit and lies from the Clintons, which is what you'd expect. Of course, the person interviewing never brought that point up, because the Clintons get a free ride, and it's about Hillary. Okay, well, it looks like the FISA court has barred FBI officials involved in the Carter Page warrant from seeking surveillance warrants. This is an order from Judge Boasberg. And he goes on to list specifically all FBI and DOJ employees who had any hand whatsoever in drafting the Woods file, the FISA application, submitting to the court, investigators working on it, anybody in any way, shape, or form associated with those Carter Page FISA warrants are currently, and those people are mostly under review by the FBI's Department of Personal, whatever they call it. So, yes, these people are not allowed to take part in any applications for surveillance warrants. And that would not surprise me. I would assume that was already the case, quite honestly. I would assume that they've been relieved of any duties that would allow them to do any type of surveillance or investigations. I would think that they would have them down in human resources, stuffing, files or something, while this review is underway and while Durham's investigation is ongoing. So, yeah, this didn't surprise me. It only surprised me that we're just now hearing about it and it wasn't automatic. Well, it looks like they've moved the Rotten Reverend Clinton's close friend Harvey Weinstein over to Rikers Island. Of course, he faked a heart condition in order to hopefully get a gig in the hospital, trying to avoid actual jail. The judge is quite aware of this, and so, they let him have this procedure, but immediately, as soon as the doctor said, okay, he's good now, they're shipping his ass back over to Rikers Island. So off to Rikers Island goes Weinstein. And it looks like he's going to be in a dorm-type cell, and he'll have round-the-clock supervision. A lot like Epstein, remember? That's what he got. So, how many of you out there believe, with what Weinstein knows about the Clintons, that he could trade for some time off, if you know what I mean? How many of you believe that Weinstein, with what he knows about a lot of powerful people, how many of you believe he will end up a lot like Epstein? Is Weinstein going to end up like Epstein? If I was Weinstein, I would be worried. I'd be very, very worried. If they want to whack you, the best place for them to do it is in jail. And I think we all know that. And that's what happened to Epstein, and everyone knows that too. And my guess is if you're Weinstein, being sent to Rikers Island is probably your death sentence. That's where they're going to shut you up permanently. I'll be very surprised if Weinstein survives his experience. He knows too much about too many powerful people, and especially the Clintons. And I imagine he knows a lot about Epstein. I'm sure they were friends. So he probably knows a lot about Epstein as well. Okay, well, we have, this shouldn't surprise anybody. We have the Mitwit Romney. He was questioned by some reporters about Ron Johnson's investigation into the Bidens and about Ron Johnson possibly sending a subpoena to Burisma Joe and Hunter once he completes his depositions and gets all the documents he's requested. He's certainly going to interview, already said, he's going to bring in Andrei Teleshenko, which is the Ukrainian diplomat who worked at the embassy in Washington, who had been asked by Alexandra Chalupa to dig up dirt on Manafort and the Trump campaign. So that is one thing that's kind of over here that he's working on. But the other part of it is Burisma Joe and all that was going on there. So it shouldn't surprise anybody that Mitwit Willard says that he believes that it looks awfully political, and that he's not going to know exactly what to do until he talks to Ron Johnson, and that but it's being suggested he may try to block those subpoenas of Hunter and Joe Biden regarding things in Ukraine. Now, that probably has a lot to do with the fact that Mitwit's senior advisor, is Cofer Black, who, of course, was also on the board at Burisma. Yes, that's right. Mitwit's buddy is a senior advisor on the board at Burisma. So Mitwit really doesn't want Burisma being brought up. Now, my guess is what he's going to do. He's going to go to Ron Johnson and say, listen, I can't really vote for this unless you promise to keep Cofer out of the conversation, anything having to do with me out of the conversation, and just keep it limited to Burisma Joe and that sort of thing. If you can keep me out of it, then I'll vote for it. If not, I won't. I think that that's probably the bargaining chip that Romney is going to go in with. But Ron Johnson's pretty much a straight shooter, and I don't think he likes Romney very much anyway. Romney's pretty much persona non grata, as I understand, around the Capitol right now. I don't know if they need his vote. I don't know if his one vote can stop it. But, we'll have to see how that goes. I expect Susan Collins and Murkowski are probably not going to vote to get to the bottom of Ukraine and Burisma and quid pro quo Joe and all the rest. So I think Ron Johnson is going to run into some problems because, again, we just have a bunch of flatliners in the Senate. I mean, they suck. And that's the problem. So we'll see what can be done here. Maybe, the way that you get things done in Washington and move people is you got to have leverage. You got to have something on somebody, and you got to use it. You got to have leverage, and you have to use it. Everything in the Senate, especially, is leverage. And Romney's going to use what leverage he has, just like Collins and Murkowski. So Ron Johnson, and he knows this, he's been around there a long time, he knows he's going to have to use some leverage to get the votes, to get the subpoenas to the people he wants to interview. We'll see how he does. He'll do a hell of a lot better than Lindsey Graham, I can promise you that. Well, of course, getting back to Commie Bernie, he was on with Rachel Madcow, who, of course, is no fan of Bernie. And, of course, she asked him if he would get out of the race if it comes to the convention or he gets to some point in the race and realizes that Biden has the plurality of votes, not enough to clinch the nomination, but has the lead. In other words, Biden leading, and there not being enough delegates left for Bernie to catch up. And she asked him what he would do in that situation, and he said he would quit. He said when he gets to the point in this primary process, he said if he gets to the point where there simply aren't enough delegates left for him to catch Biden, assuming he's behind Biden, if he gets to the point where there simply isn't enough delegates left, he said he's going to quit. Bail out. He's not going to challenge and go all the way to the convention and try to force a challenge or anything like that. He said when it gets to the point where mathematically there are not enough delegates, if he's behind and there's not enough delegates left for him to catch Biden, then he's going to bail. That's right. Bernie's done. He's tired. And he's already collected a bunch of money. His donor list is worth $10 to $20 million. He gets to keep most of the money he's raised. If he bails out now, he pockets probably millions of dollars on top of his donor list. As I've been telling my Bernie friends for months and months and months, this guy is a con man. This guy is a snake oil salesman. Commie Bernie knows that he has no chance of winning a national election. He knows that the Democratic Party would never let him have the nomination. He understands this completely. So why is he doing it? To start a movement? This is what a lot of people say. Well, yeah, Bernie knows he's not going to win, but he just wants to start the movement. And then when he's gone, someone will step in and take over the movement. I don't think so. I think when Bernie's gone, his movement pretty much peters out. Especially after, it all kind of goes to shit. There won't be much of a movement to take over. And once all the Bernie bros realize that they got conned by the snake oil salesman, Commie Bernie, not once but twice, and once they see after he throws in the towel and cashes in and buys another retirement home and banks about $20 million and goes off laughing into the commie sunset, by that point, the Bernie bros, most of them, will realize that they've been hosed twice. And they'll look at all those Visa card and MasterCard bills that are coming in with massive balances at 31% interest, and they'll realize they'll be paying off those credit cards for decades, while Bernie sits back and watches the interest grow on his money that was charged on all those credit cards. So that is the story of Commie Bernie and his Bernie bros. Bernie is going to walk away with all the millions that they gave him, which they charged on credit cards and are paying hellacious interest rates on. Many of them will probably file bankruptcy and try not to have to pay off those debts. Some of them will try to pay those debts, but they'll, on top of their student loan debts that they'll not be getting relief from either, they'll just be even more pissed off. And hopefully they'll never get suckered by a commie again. I warned them. I've been trying to warn them for months and months and months. The guy's a con man. This is Bernie's retirement plan. It always was. I mean, he cashed in pretty good in 2016, but he probably didn't know they were big enough suckers he could take them twice. But once he realized that not only could he screw him the first time, turn around and endorse the rotten Reverend Clinton, take probably $1 million payout, and then turn around and find that they still wanted more of it, I guess if people want to do that, I guess they can. And Bernie's like, God, these people are bigger suckers than I thought. Oh, I'll run again. I'll really grow my retirement account. Now, the son of a bitch will probably drop dead before he has a chance to enjoy much more of that money, be my guess. But there you go, Commie Bernie, the snake oil salesman, admitting that, hey, once Biden gets enough delegates ahead of me, and we look at the states remaining, and there isn't enough delegates left for me to catch him, I'm going to quit. Now, Bernie bros cannot be happy to hear that, and now Liawatha must be now banging her head against the wall after hearing Bernie come out and say that after she bailed out. Because if she would have stayed in and continued to collect her own delegates, being few as it may be, and she stayed active, when Bernie bails, he could have transferred all his delegates over to her. But if he bails, there's no one for him to transfer his delegates to. They, by default, go back to the DNC. Back to the electors, the delegates themselves. And then they get to the convention, theoretically, it'll just be Brisma Joe. And so all the delegates will go to him. But I don't think it's going to work out that way. Because again, I think that the demo commies know two things. Number one, got to stop Bernie. Number two, Biden is senile. First problem first. We got to use Biden to get rid of Bernie. Because Lundberg didn't work out. So they use Biden to get rid of Bernie. And once Bernie's gone, once we get to this next Tuesday round of voting, unless Bernie does really well, and I'm not sure he will. I don't think he will, as a matter of fact. I think after this coming, or actually, I think the 24th. I think after the Tuesday, the 24th, or the 27th. I can't remember. I'm not looking on the calendar, but it's either the 24th or 27th. It's when we vote here in Ohio. After that day, because you have Michigan, Ohio, you have a bunch of states voting that are key. States that Bernie would absolutely have to win and win big. If he doesn't, he will never be able to catch Biden. Never. There simply won't be enough delegates left. And then you'll have too many states in the South that'll be voting, and there's just no way Bernie will be able to win. At which point, you could see Bernie drop out, after the 27th or after the next big Tuesday vote. which is in, I guess, a little less than 2 weeks. So, once that happens, then the Democrats will say, okay, we've gotten rid of Bernie. That's taken care of. Good. Now, what are we going to do about Dementia Joe? Because, quite honestly, this guy's out of it. So what are we going to do now? Some people are speculating it'll be Michael Obama. I don't think so. I think it's the Rotten Reverend, personally. I think the Rotten Reverend is, in a lot of ways, engineering a lot of this, and she's probably happy as she can be. She's looking at the way this is going to play out, and she knows that Charisma Joe is now got enough of a lead, and unless Bernie has a really good day in 2 weeks, and I don't think he will, and she probably doesn't either, and they're probably working hard to make sure that doesn't happen. At that point, once it's just Charisma Joe, then you got the Rotten Reverend Clinton sitting there looking at Charisma Joe, knowing good and well he's senile, suffering from dementia. You think the Rotten Reverend Clinton sitting there on her perch is not going to, immediately begin making those phone calls, spreading the so-called rumor, or it's true, as a matter of fact, it would be true that Biden simply doesn't have the stuff, and that the only person really can step in and save the day is her. This looks like so much like a Rotten Reverend Clinton plot, man. It's exactly the way the Rotten Reverend Clinton operates. And so I think that that's what's going on right here. Stop Bernie, number one, and then deal with Joe later. And you got the Rotten Reverend Clinton waiting in the wings. That's what it looks like to me. The demonic buzzard circling over the demented Biden, waiting for him to get the boot. And they'll just simply sit down with him and say, Joe, we've been watching some video and watching you at these rallies, and we think that you need to go consult a physician and you need to bow out, and we'll let you go on medical on the advice of your doctor. Your doctor is advising you that you probably shouldn't put yourself in a position to have to deal with the stresses of the office, and therefore your health comes first, and you got to walk away. And then the Rotten Reverend Clinton comes in as Biden goes out stage left. In comes the Rotten Reverend Clinton, and it's all done. That's what it looks like to me. Well, John Solomon was on Papadopoulos' show, and it's about a 20-25 minute interview. It's pretty good. Didn't learn a whole lot of new things, but there was one thing that that was mentioned by John Solomon, which I think is pretty interesting. Barr and Durham were over in Italy this past summer, where they were able to get a copy of a deposition that was given to Mifsud's lawyer, Stephen Rowe. And Solomon has heard that tape. Solomon has heard the tape. And he says that on that tape, Mifsud admits that someone told him to take this girl, who he now knows a wine salesman, Olga Polanskaya, and pull a ruse on Papadopoulos and tell him that this was Putin's niece. So Mifsud admits on this tape that the girl that he introduced to Papadopoulos as Putin's niece, he admits she wasn't Putin's niece, and he also admits that he was told by someone to do this. But he doesn't say who. But let's remember, it was Vincenzo Scotti, former Italian government official, who introduced Papadopoulos to Mifsud. And I think if I'm Barr and Durham, I'm going to go have a talk with Vincenzo Scotti, if they haven't already. He's connected to a lot of intelligence people, State Department people, probably knows he's a diplomat, so he probably knows the Rotten Reverend Clinton very well. If I'm Durham and I want to find out what's going on with Mifsud and Downer and Halper, I go talk to the Rotten Reverend. I'm pretty sure she can tell him everything, because I think they were working for her. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you guys. Bye.